How are businesses in Brooklyn dealing with the inflation that this country is experiencing? In a short while, I'll be joined by an official from the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce to discuss this. Also in this program, we'll be talking about Al Vann, referred to by thousands as a towering figure in Brooklyn politics. This is Brooklyn 45. Your investments are being battered. Brooklyn businesses too are being buffeted. And if you're a business owner or you are employed by a Brooklyn company, you know what I mean. How are you coping? My guest is Mark Caserta from the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. Mark, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about what you do with the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce.
So among my roles is I spend a lot of time with small businesses. We had in 2020, the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce led an effort citywide to create the Small Business Resource Network, which is mainly help small businesses recover from the pandemic. We provide help with loans and grants and legal assistance and accounting, whatever it might be. It's all free. All 5 chambers are working on it. And so we do a lot of work going door to door, speaking with small business owners and seeing how things are going, and helping with them with all the things they're struggling with these days.
How are business coping with this? You referred to it just now, the struggle. How are these small businesses coping?
So it's funny, I went out today, I was out in the neighborhood. I was reminded, that this whole thing started, if you go all the way back to March of 2020, the businesses were shut down for the COVID pandemic. And then they were starting to reopen a little bit with some rules and regulations, which were quite restrictive and difficult to make money with. And then they had new restrictions based on the vaccinations. And then we had this time period where there were grants that were coming out from government that were helping small businesses to retain their staff, to pay the bills. That period is now over for the most part. There were also, right after that happened, there were staffing shortages. It was difficult to keep staff. And then there were supply shortages, so it was difficult to put stuff on their shelves. We're still in some ways experiencing that. And now we've added inflation on top of it. So at the back end of all the struggles here, expenses have gone up for the small businesses, and customers are experiencing their funds not going as far as they used to. And so in a lot of ways, the struggle has never really ended for the small businesses since March of 2020. It's really still the same struggle in a continuum.
Mr. Caserta, you mentioned grants, and you did say that some types of support are no longer available. Grants. A lot of companies need either loans or grants. Could you speak to that and let our small business owners know what grants are available, or what other kind of assistance, financial assistance is available to them?
Sure. So at the beginning, we had the PPP loans, which are forgivable and become grants if they're forgiven. There was also the Restaurant Relief Act that happens to help specifically for restaurants. And then somewhere in that time period, there was also the Empire State Development Corporation, New York State, received $800 million from the federal government to give to small businesses for grants up to $50,000. To date, they have given away, I believe, 600 million of the 800 million. So there's still 200 million left. They recently reduced their restrictions. One of the restrictions was that you had to show a profit in 2019 in order to qualify to even be considered. They got rid of that restriction, so you can show a loss now in 2019, which is good news for some of our small businesses. And as long as you show a loss from 2019 to 2020, you may qualify. So we've been talking to a lot of our small businesses about that that fund. $200 million is nothing to sneeze at.
That's correct.
It's free money, and it's up to $50,000. So we've been going around kind of speaking to the small businesses about that opportunity. If that's not available to them, the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce is a CDFI. We are community development, community financing development. We provide low interest loans to small business owners. Some of those loans can be as low as 0% for $15,000 or less. And they are based largely on recommendations and character rather than your credit score. So that lets a lot of folks into the door who may not have had access previously. We've been doing a lot of loans that way. Larger loans are still below the market rate for banks. We kind of work at that. The money is donated from institutions to us, so we don't have to make the interest back. So that's been going well. It's been a good opportunity for those who can't get the grants or might be interested in, expanding and finding their way through the next few years.
So how do companies take advantage of these opportunities? They get in touch with the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. You said there are other loans that are made available not by the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. So what do companies have to do to benefit from this? You referred to it earlier as free money. Sure.
So one of the ways you can do that is to reach out to me or to go to the website, the Small Business Resource Network.com, and sign up. You will be assigned to one of the staff members of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce to work with you on a client one-on-one basis. They can work with you to talk you through the grant opportunities, the loan opportunities, and anything else you might be struggling. Perhaps you have some technical issues with your website, or you need some graphic design, or whatever it might be. We can find you the help you need.
What ways are businesses being affected by this inflation? Talk a bit about the inflation. We hear on the news every day that a lot of companies are in trouble. What is this inflation?
So one of the ways, I just spoke to a restaurant owner this afternoon who was seeing the inflation affect his gas bill. His gas bill's gone up. The gasoline for his vehicles have gone up in cost. The cost of buying goods for his restaurant, including food, plates, napkins, whatever it might be, have all gone up almost 30 to 50% or more. And so they're already kind of struggling through the pandemic, and they're finding that they have all these bills to pay, that everything costs more. So they've actually, a lot of them had to raise their prices. So in turn, customers are going to restaurants that they traditionally went to and are finding that the prices are now higher. And these same customers are also finding the prices are higher in the grocery store, at the gas pump, and pretty much everywhere else. So it's, you can see it everywhere. And ultimately, the pain is being felt by the consumer, but it will be passed on to the restaurant eventually. If people can't afford to go to the restaurant or the store and shop, and then they'll definitely lose customers. So it reverberates through the entire system.
Yeah, what other industries, small businesses you refer to specifically, but you talk about restaurants, you talk about gas stations. What other industries are at risk?
Well, I mean, I think pretty much there's probably no industry that isn't at risk. You might, the stores that sometimes survive a lot of these catastrophes are liquor stores, because for whatever reason, like when things get worse, people went to a liquor store and buy a bottle of wine or something. That happened during the pandemic as well. But manufacturing, obviously, to buy raw materials to make what you're making has gotten more expensive, and all the fuel costs and shipping things to that factory. So we have very small companies, manufacturers in Brooklyn, and a lot of their goods can be a little more expensive because they're small and independent little manufacturers. So they will suffer as a result of this for sure, and which is a shame. I guess even it could even go down to lending institutions. People don't want to don't have isn't as much money in a bank as normal to lend out, and people aren't as willing to take those loans out, or even to buy a new home with interest rates going up. So I can't think of too much other than a liquor store that isn't affected by it at this point.
Yeah. You talked about the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce making loans and making grants available to businesses, but does the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce do training as well? And do these businesses have time to go attend these training courses if you offer them?
So through our Small Business Solutions Center in downtown Brooklyn, we do offer training courses. A lot of them are virtual online. You are correct, though, that small businesses are among the most challenged in time. They're mainly because of the struggles that we were just talking about. But, just owning a business means, getting up early, opening the store, hiring people, firing people, making the schedules, buying the supplies, having that time to think in a more grand scale and get the sort of training you might need to make it to the next step is one of the biggest challenges. So we do have those available. We can also refer small businesses to services to get the training they might need. We have a lot of experts on our staff, and so a lot of them are external, but we know a lot about them. We can introduce the folks to those resources.
And you need small businesses to understand that it is important to be related to or be a member of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. What is your outreach like to small businesses who are not members of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce?
So a vast majority of our outreach is actually to businesses that are not members. The Small Business Resource Network, all of the free resources that we provide for the Small Business Resource Network, both in Brooklyn and all the rest of the boroughs, is completely free. It is not contingent on joining the chamber. And we will keep that way forever. If you like what you see and you like what we do, then maybe you'll join later.
What do you say to businesses who are seeing this decline in sales? And they're afraid that the next day or the next week is not going to see the survival of their business? What solutions do you have for these businesses who are seeing these decline in sales?
So some of the things we can do, especially if we have on staff a couple of restaurant experts, we can come in actually and sit down with them and look at how their expenses are looking and their profit and loss. Look where they're buying their supplies from, looking at their staffing configurations, and give them recommendations on how to save some money to get through these difficult patches. Again, we can find some ways for them to find some additional sources of revenue. We might be able to introduce them to some ways to sell their goods in another marketplace. Maybe, for example, there are ways to be involved with selling at the Barclays Center or other locations. So, we try to take a holistic approach. If we take you on as a free client, look at the whole picture, both expenses and revenue side. And also, try to find you some mentoring. Mentoring is really important. Finding someone who's experienced, who can work with you one-on-one as well. So we have a lot of folks who are business mentors who we can introduce you to, and you can work with them also for free.
Talk about the importance of good customer relations. That's the people behind the counter, the people behind their desk. Customers coming to them. And my experience even this week has been wondering, why is this person working here?
Yeah. So that is one of the biggest challenges for small businesses. And I think, when the owner's not there, and hopefully the owner is good with customer service, that's not always the case. one of the biggest things is customer service, being able to work with, and that's one of the reasons why you go to a small business, right? You want that one-on-one support. You want to talk to someone who's friendly, who you're supporting, who lives in the neighborhood or in Brooklyn or New York City. And the thing about it is, if you can't do that, especially in this day and age, people have smartphones, people have computers, and they can share their experiences with others, and it can really take you down the drain. So it's really important to stand out as someone who's willing to go the extra mile for your customers and be friendly and really serve.
Yes, I hope. I hear these complaints over and over and over again, and absolutely. I hope our viewers are listening to you. Mark Caserta from the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. Again, how do people get in touch with you?
You can email me at mcaserta@brooklynchamber.com, or just give me a call at the Chamber's phone number. It's 718-875-1000.
Okay, thank you. Mark Caserta from the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, and we hope that things will look up for small businesses.
Me too.
Al Vann is no longer here in person, but will be remembered by hundreds of thousands of people in Brooklyn and New York as a towering figure in Brooklyn politics and in many Brooklyn communities. Joining me to discuss the stamp this man has left behind is Medgar Evers College professor Zulema Blair. Professor Blair, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having me again, Sam.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you with us on Brooklyn 45. Let's begin by talking about the impact that Al Vann has had on Brooklyn communities.
Yeah, so great start, because I met Al Vann close to 20 years ago, and everyone was talking about him. I met him at a forum that he called. He was just great. He mentored generations of leaders, civic, health, political, teachers, educational leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders, and he's made people's careers. When you look at Tish James and a Lester Young and a John Flateau, you look at all these individuals whose lives he literally took, Annette Robinson, under his wings and, you know, channeled their careers. Even people in his own generation, that he had the vision. So he was a visionary leader. And as most people refer to him as a gentle giant, that couldn't have been further from the truth. He really is that gentle giant. He knew how to call a meeting. And I want people to understand the importance of that. Calling a meeting and having everyone, no matter if you were a political adversary or you were a political friend, you showed up to a meeting that Al Vann called. You wanted to be called to that meeting, in fact. So he had a significant impact on multiple generations in the political world.
You said that he called the meeting and people show up.
Everyone showed up.
And he had a strong and persuasive personality. Talk to us about this personality.
It went along with his vision. Like, he loved being called Black, right? He loved speaking to his ancestry. And so when he spoke of these things, and you knew that he lived it. And so he tried to impart that knowledge on everyone. And so he didn't just try to get you to think like him, as he would normally say, but he tried to get you to see what was happening in the world around you. And so when he called this meeting and laid the foundation and the knowledge base for what was happening in the world around you, people were moved. and wanted to do something about it. He was the catalyst for civic learning, service, and engagement all at the same time.
So he built a power base. Talk to us about the power base that he built.
Yeah, I would say like a young Roger Green, right? And all of, I mean, it started in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Clinton Hill. He did movements. I met him because I came along on his second coming, right? So they had the Coalition for Community Empowerment in the early 80s, but then in the early 2000s, he had, or mid 2000s, he had Black Brooklyn Empowerment Coalition, for which I eventually became the chair of. And people still remember that because what he did was bring together thought leaders and people from different segments of society, whether it was criminal justice, international administration with immigration issues, voting rights issues, all of these different things, and put together different committees. And we held a conference at it. I never forget for it at Concord Baptist Church to create this agenda that still lives on. People still remember this agenda. And that is the ultimate for public policy making, right? Agenda setting. So when he called this meeting, you knew it was to set an agenda to move forward that eventually will bring about change. For example, the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus would often adapt this agenda. I remember when Darrell Towns was the chair, he adapted the whole agenda for which we put together. When Kirsten Gillibrand first became the US Senator, she came to us for a Black agenda for which we had created. Even Christine Quinn, for whom Al Vann went against for not naming a street and all these different issues, she eventually took on the idea of expanding community health-based centers. For that was a part of the Black Brooklyn agenda, and expanding the gifted and talented program. So we had our mark on a lot of different things, but it was because he had the vision and the impact to call this meeting.
Vision, agenda, change.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a bit about the change that exists today as a result of Al Vann, and the change, the impact of which will continue to be felt across Brooklyn in the future.
Well, I think because he was able to, and I think a lot of people should take some serious lessons from his leadership, he was able to recruit people. He was not selfish with his knowledge. He shared it, he recruited people. You look at Esmeralda Simmons and a Paul Wooten. Esmeralda, who has been a mentor to me with redistricting and voting rights, we're living it today. Because of them, we have 51 city council districts, right? Before it used to be at-large districts. You had Esmeralda Simmons and a John Flatto and a Paul Wooten involved in that process, who's still doing this type of work. So it's because of them that we now have, look at 3 generations later, a majority city council of women, women majority, and it's 31 women. It's because of that we are able to think about districts in terms of representation, demographic representation at a local level, where we could get money to build our institutions. He set the stage in how he built up Bed-Stuy. He cared about high schools, right? Boys and girls. The facility, if people cared about it, look at the facility that he built in terms of boys and girls. They have a magnificent field, the music, everything about it, the auditorium. And when you look at Medgar Evers College, him and a group of individuals, the G2C, all of these different individuals that were a part of that movement that committed to community control. And that's what it was about for him, community control.
You talked about mentoring. Talk to our viewers about the importance of being mentored and the importance of the mentoring someone.
Yes, when you mentor individuals, mentor people from your community, that this human resource will also pass it along. Things last and we build wealth through generations. And wealth is not just monetary. Yes, it eventually transforms into it, but it is from knowledge. And when you create this knowledge and you pass this information along, you're able to sustain it in your communities, and the ideas live and relive itself. So if you don't have a mentor, get a mentor, and you can have more than one. And that's what Al Vann did. He was a mentor to many, and many people were able to pass that along. And I hope others will do the same.
We've got less than a minute. They refer to Al Vann as Vann the Man. In 30 seconds, talk about the Vann the Man.
Well, he was able to, like I said, he was able to call this meeting. He was able to command an agenda. He was able to command change. He was able to command a crowd and a movement. And that's what he did. He always had a movement going. And when he became involved, he became involved at the right time, that he knew, listen, this is what it was about, and everyone listened and followed suit. So that's why he was the man.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Zulema Blair. Dr. Blair is a Medgar Evers College professor and an administrator, and has worked with Al Vann. I want to thank you for being our guest here on Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having me again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor Zulema Blair. And to our viewers, we thank you for listening to this program. And we invite you to partner with Brooklyn 45. Please partner with us. You can suggest topics, and you can also provide some support for us. We are a 501c3 not-for-profit, and you support us financially, and you'll see the returns when you come to file your income taxes. Our communities benefit as you will benefit. Please support Brooklyn 45 and tell everyone you know on social media to watch Brooklyn 45. On behalf of our Brooklyn 45 team, I am Sam Taitt.
Brooklyn 45 is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and we welcome your support. Check out our website, brooklyn45.com, and feel free to donate or share it with your friends and family. Have any comments or questions? Send them to our Facebook, facebook.com/Brooklyn45TV. If you have any questions or topics you think we should cover next, shoot me an email over at brooklyn45tv@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching.